Se va la gente. Turn down the volume, Richie. Turn down the volume, Both them.
Beautiful. It was beautiful. I love it. It was beautiful. Hello. 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 Okay, well, I think another round of applause for the director here, Eirene. Houston, what a beautiful documentary. I loved it. I really liked it. So we're going to start the Q&A. Thank you for staying here. Chat briefly a little bit with the filmmaker. And I would like to open it with a very general question, and that's like, why filming this documentary? Like, where did the idea to film this documentary about dance, Cuba, which is such an intrinsic part of their culture, right, come from?
Well, I've been going to Cuba quite a long time, and we had a film here in 2013. So I've been going to Cuba since 1997. And one of the things I say about Cuba, it taught me two of the most important things. One was to live in the present, and the other was to dance casino. And so I just love to dance casino. And then Hugo, who's the co-director of this, he lives in Havana. So I was his teacher at film school. He was a mature student at film school. He's like about 50 odd, and he looks about 20. But so Hugo and I, we danced, and all my friends and things. And then reggaeton started coming in, and we noticed that, the young people were dancing less and less salsa. They were losing that tradition. Of course, it's been the tradition in Cuba for 100 years. And I love Cuban music. I love to dance, Cuban culture, film, everything. And then we used to have conversations in the sea, just like talking about what should we do, what ideas. And we just thought, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to son and salsa if all the young people start dancing reggaeton? And then there was one day I just said, Irene, if you could do anything now at this point, what would the thing be that you wanted to do? And it was to say, make that film about what's going to happen to son and salsa when reggaeton comes, if all the young people are dancing reggaeton. And also it's a bit about change coming and what's going to happen to Cuba. And it's like, the internal question, what's going to happen? And we don't really know, And so that became the thing that we really wanted to do quite a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And of course, as all documentary makers know, it takes a very long time, to make a film and then do the post-production. And of course, for a dance film, you need music. And of course, music is a very difficult thing to get. So anyway, that was a very long version of why I decided.
No, that's for, and actually that's another question I had, like how long it took actually the whole process.
We filmed over a year and a half with the wonderful Roberto Chile. He loved doing the project. And I went back to Cuba, I think 5 times over we filmed 5, or I think we did some final shooting the 6th time, but we shot over a year and a half, which is why we could get them back to Mariel and shoot the next year where they won. And so that took a year and a half, and then we started editing and things went quite well. And then there's, it's too boring to tell you all the different problems that would take too long. But then eventually, money obviously is a big problem, how you get it. And also music was such a big thing until I then discovered that so many of my Cuban friends could, one of the, I had a friend, Julio Montoro, who's a very wonderful Cuban musician. And I met him in 98 in the UK when Cuban culture was really big in the UK, after Buena Vista Social Club and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so there was lots of Cuban musicians came over. And there's a nice story with Julio Montoro because he was a friend, we had lots of friends and Cuban musicians. And I was also a musician before. I'm a songwriter, and before I've had a lot of different lives. And so I was also a songwriter. And I had this 4-track, or was it an 8-track? I can't remember. Anyway, I gave it to Julio as a present to take back to Cuba so he could do his music in Cuba. And that would have been 98, 99. So when we've got Julio now has a studio in Santa Suarez.
Okay. And
some of these, he wrote a couple of these songs for the film, the Bolero. And then we have the danzón, and that's also Julio did the danzón and the danzón. And then he gave me some of his other music to have in the film. So that was a wonderful kind of reciprocal present that I got back. I gave him his first studio, and then we did work in his studio that he has now in Havana.
That's great, yeah.
And then my friend Raciel Garcia, he said, Irene, don't worry, I've got lots of music. And I said, really? And then he played me, and I said, God, these are great salsa songs and all that, because he does bolero and sings beautiful bolero and all that. And I was like, wow. And then he introduced me to the producer, and David Alvarez, who's also, and he had a little studio in Havana, and he wrote some songs as well, and he did the tribute to Benny Moré, because we thought, and so through this, I was able to finish the film just through friends. And my son-in-law is also quite a well-known musician, and he did the reggaeton and the electronic stuff of the kids. So it's a real, made with lots of love and lots of friends.
And that's a great way, I think, to complete the commentary, right? With friends and a love, for sure.
Yeah.
Just another question. You mentioned that you wanted to see how some of the traditional dances might be getting lost with the new generations, right? Like embracing maybe reggaeton more than they are embracing traditional dances. But from the documentary, we could see how we could still see like young generations of Cubans still wanting to learn how to dance the more traditional dances in Cuba. So what do you think about that? Could it still be optimistic?
Well, things are so hard in Cuba just now, as we know. But the funny thing was, I was just there the last time I was there, and it seemed that there was more dancers again, even though the times are tougher. And there was a kind of period where they were all reggaeton, but apparently there's some of the reggaeton artists now are going back to a bit of salsa in their music, a bit of casino. But the other thing, Cuban reggaeton never really lost the casino, the salsa rhythm.
Yeah.
So you can dance casino to a lot of reggaeton songs. So they're not like songs from other Latin countries, which tend to be very much harder. So like the reggaeton, and funnily enough, Ugo and I went through making the film, began to quite like some reggaeton, and so we thought, that's not so bad. We can only dance 3 dances and then you get bored. But, it's one of the things that everybody dances together. And you saw we had other scenes, and Marta was saying, oh, I can dance a bit of reggaeton. So there is still that sharing. But I think I was losing a bit of hope, and thinking, but I do think that there was more, it's coming back a wee bit,
I think we could see.
And when you go to Cuba, with tourism's really down and everything, but the people that are still going are the people who love to dance. And if there's one thing that's going to save Cuba, it's music and dance and film.
Nice. That's not, yeah, exactly. Okay, so I have more questions, but I know we don't have a lot of time. So I think we have time for maybe 2 questions. So if anyone wants to ask Eirene something?
Irene, I loved this film. It was awesome.
Thank you.
And I didn't know you danced. And the whole time while I was watching this film, I was like, this was filmed by a dancer. This was made by a dancer. Because
I loved it's one of my favorite, and Son especially.
Yeah, but you can tell I didn't know that you danced. And the whole time I was like, this is great.
Oh, I'm glad.
And I loved it. And as a dancer, I can say this is really like dance on film, which is hard to do. And you did it. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have, I think, time for
Thank you so
one
much.
more.
Congratulations. A group of dancers here as well. We love the film.
Oh,
we,
great.
We dance Colombian music. She's our teacher here, Carla. And I just wanted to ask if there's plans to bring back the film to Cuba. And because I think it would be really wonderful to see what's the reaction there with the groups that you filmed it.
I'm dying to show it to them. We showed them a little clips of it and they were so emotional. Sadly, a few of them have gone, but there's still plenty of them there. Well, I'm going to we'll go to the Havana Film Festival in December. But even if we don't get into the festival, we're going to show it in Havana. Hopefully we get in, but if we don't, we'll do that. And then hopefully Santiago next year. We'll just try. And yes, absolutely. There's nothing I like better than showing it like in Cuba. Yeah.
Hi, I wanted to
one more
know
question.
about following the stories of the different people in this. How did you do that? Did you write a script?
No, we kind of, it's a bit like how I am originally a screenwriter, and it's a bit like how it's very similar to writing a script in that the characters would always run away with me when I'm writing a screenplay, and the characters just run away with you, so you don't know what's going to happen. And so so people, we just had basically the idea, and then we, Mark, oh my goodness, when with the record player story, that was just something came out of what happens, and we thought that's a very, it's a very poignant story about, especially when they say there's no parts, there's no parts anymore because there's no Soviet Union, there's no place to get the parts. And so these kind of things, that story came out of what happened as we were going on. And of course, the young people never did what you thought they would do or what you wanted them to do. Just like, so you just have to go along with what's going. The only thing that we had was like the two competitions that were definitely going to happen. But of course, I could tell when I was the first one that they weren't going to win, just because it was the costumes and the things. And I was just watching it and going, and they were so confident before. And I was going, they're not going to win. They're not going to win. Oh my God. And then of course, and then we didn't think they were going to win the second time either. And we had a whole other plan, to do so that everybody wouldn't be too sad when they didn't win. And then they did win. And we're like, yeah. Well, they were going to be on a TV show. So we thought we had all ready to film them being on the TV show. They didn't win, but they've got this other thing to do. We might have changed the structure a bit of what happened. So as I say, you don't really have a plan with a documentary. You have a kind of plan, but you have to go with what happens, which is the fun of it, really.
Okay, well, yeah. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for questions. So
I'll chat
round
to you
of
outside.
applause,
Chat
please.
to me outside.
Yes, we can keep chatting outside, definitely. Thank you.
Thanks so
you, Irene.
much. Thank you for coming. And